Ukraine is ready for a ceasefire along the whole front line. Donald Trump will work on it. Meanwhile, Bashar Assad regime has collapsed, and even Russian dictator Vladimir Putin could not help Assad to stay in power. So what is known about recent statement of US President-elect Donald Trump about a ceasefire in Ukraine, and why did Russia withdraw its troops from Syria? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with French President Emmanuel Macron and US President Donald Trump. US President-elect Trump spoke with President Zelenskyy and Macron on the war in Ukraine. Both sides discussed the current state of the war in Ukraine and how it is possible to end this conflict as soon as possible. According to Axios, Trump, for the first time, did not want to meet with President Zelenskyy. However, Macron convinced Trump to have a conversation with President Zelenskyy. That's why Donald Trump and President Zelenskyy met in Paris and had good and fruitful discussions. However, both Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy did not reveal any kind of details about this interesting conversation between both leaders. However, after the talks and after Donald Trump's visit to France, we have heard some interesting statements from US President-elect. So Donald Trump said that President Zelenskyy would be ready to organize a ceasefire in Ukraine. According to Trump, President Zelenskyy would like to have a ceasefire in Ukraine as soon as possible. Also, Donald Trump said that Vladimir Putin has lost the war in Ukraine because the high number of his casualties. He said that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has lost 700,000 soldiers in Ukraine. That's why Vladimir Putin has lost this war and faced a defeat. And that's why Vladimir Putin should work on how he can reach a ceasefire in Ukraine as soon as possible, according to the US President Donald Trump. On the other hand, US President-elect said that the US support for Ukraine would be cut off. The support for Ukraine would be reduced. The statement was made during his interview on NBC News channel. So according to Donald Trump, the US support for Ukraine would be reduced, and it seems like another message of Donald Trump to the European allies that European leaders should take more steps in supporting Ukraine, should play a bigger and larger role in supporting Ukraine rather than the United States. Also, it's interesting that Donald Trump just said that the US support for Ukraine would be reduced, but he did not say that the US would stop aiding Ukraine. And this is really important statement from US President-elect, because for the first time he said that he hinted that he could continue to support Ukraine, but on less levels than European allies. So at the same time, we have both plans from President Zelenskyy and US President-elect Donald Trump, and both Ukraine and the United States will try to reach a deal on the common position on how Ukraine can end this war in Ukraine and how we can reach a ceasefire as soon as possible. So according to the Donald Trump's plan, Trump will propose to freeze the front line, to reach a ceasefire in Ukraine without even some terms. So a ceasefire should be reached, and Ukraine should be banned from joining NATO. In exchange for a ceasefire, Ukraine should receive another military assistance from the United States and its allies. On the other hand, Vladimir Putin would be forced to negotiate with Ukraine in good faith, unless he will, on the other hand, if he refuses to enter negotiations, Russia will face increasing support for Ukraine on the other hand. Also, we have another plan for a ceasefire, another plan for a ceasefire from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. President Zelenskyy suggests that Ukraine should join NATO, and after that, there could be a ceasefire in Ukraine. According to President Zelenskyy, there is a need for a strong security guarantees, because if there is only a ceasefire without any possible guarantees for Ukraine, Russia will use the ceasefire to regroup and attack Ukraine again in the future. So according to President Zelenskyy, Ukraine should join NATO, and the Article 5 of this treaty, the guarantee of Article 5 should be activated for those territories which are controlled by the Ukrainian government. So its plan is being discussed with other allies. However, Trump's team would not like to see Ukraine in NATO. That's why the another option is to reach a ceasefire in Ukraine, but without membership on NATO. However, Trump's team proposed European troops to be deployed to patrol this demilitarized zone. However, we will analyze the next statements from Donald Trump, because it seems like he has not yet revealed any kind of details on how he would end this war in Ukraine, and a lot of will depend on the result of negotiations between Ukraine and the United States, because it is really important that Ukraine, the United States and its allies around the globe will reach one common position and will present this position to Vladimir Putin. And if Putin refuses to this plan, then US and its allies can put more pressure on Putin to force him to agree with such plan, with such point. At the same time, German opposition leader Friedrich Merz today is in Kyiv, and he will hold talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. So Friedrich Merz could become the next German chancellor, because his party has the largest support from the German people. And earlier, Friedrich Merz supported providing Ukraine with long-range Taurus missiles. He said that Ukraine should receive Taurus missiles in order to negotiate a peaceful settlement of the war in Ukraine. And if Friedrich Merz elected as a German chancellor, then he can deal with Donald Trump, he can unite with him and put more pressure on Vladimir Putin, provide him with another package of long-range missiles, provide Ukraine with another aid package for Ukraine, and then it will be more pressure on Vladimir Putin to end this war on appropriate terms and to negotiate with Ukraine in good faith. And in the end of our conversation, we will cover current situation in Syria. Bashar Assad regime has collapsed, and even Russian dictator Vladimir Putin could not help Bashar Assad to stay in power. So Syrian rebels have captured the Syrian capital, city of Damascus, and this was the beginning of another era in this history of Syria, because Bashar al-Assad has fled from Syria, and today he's in Moscow. However, it really depends on what would happen in Syria the day after. Also, Russian troops have withdrew from the Syria, have been redeployed from this region. It's really important, it's significant development, because Russia has 2 military bases in Syria, and the outcome of the current political process in Syria will determine the fate of Russia's military presence in Syria. Western leaders welcomed this development in Syria and supported the collapse of the Bashar Assad regime. However, it's really still remains a big question about who will participate, who will take power in Syria, because Syrian rebels are Islamist groups which are not really tolerated by the West. However, it really depends on the who will take power in Syria and who will become the next Syrian president and prime minister. But we will keep our eye on the recent developments in Syria, and we'll let you know about the current news from there, and we will continue to analyze the recent news from Ukraine, Russia, and also from Syria, which are a lot of things are going on right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's all for today. Stay with us on YouTube, and glory to Ukraine.